Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Rotoworld Football Show on Tuesday, July 29th. Training camp's more raging than ever. I say it's raging every episode. I mean, it's just like an inferno now. Lots of news, actually. Unfortunately, a lot of injury news. Matthew Stafford not practicing after his back issues flared back up. Joe Mixon not practicing, uncertain return date. Darnell Mooney appears to be missing most of training camp. Kyle Dvorchak. I'm Patrick Daugherty, by the way. Sean Payton talking up J.K. Dobbins' quote, swift transition to the Broncos offense, what you love to hear. Absolutely what you love to hear if you have the R.J. Harvey quote bags. Drake Maye claiming he might not run as much. Another thing that will not personally bankrupt Kyle Dvorchak and Patrick Harrain if Drake Maye ran less in 2025. So many other news items. I'm not entirely sure what all we're going to get to. Then we're going to have some rankings debates. Our rankings, our draft guide, our free player profiles are about to go live. Kyle and I did the ranks. We have a difference of opinion in a few different areas. One of them, Aaron Jones versus Jordan Mason, which we got some coach quotes that making it look like it might be over for Kyle. Which side of the debate were you on? Oh, yeah, I was on the Jones side, apparently. So it's over for me. Not for you. So,
I was so confused. Yeah. I was like, did we read different coach quotes? Because I felt pretty good.
So it's never been more over for me, even though I was actually I've been wanting to move Jordan Mason up, by the way. I don't know if we really have a difference of opinion. But I'm Pat Daugherty. It's Kyle Dvorchak. Who's not here is Denny Carter. He claims he's a man of the people. Training camp is beginning, and he's nowhere to be found. Quite curious, Kyle.
This is not Denny Carter related, although maybe he's running out of fear. But did you like training camp more when it was like, oh man, Jordy Nelson, he walked off the field. He's fine. Oh no, he tore his ACL. Like they didn't bring the card out for anyone. It was like, get inside and throw some dirt on it in like the early aughts, even into the 20 teens. And now it's like guy is cramping and they're like, send in the ambulance. We have to have everyone on staff for this. What was better? We never know what happens until the final MRI comes in, or we are just drowning in every single little tweak. A dislocated non-big toe is the headline story of the month. What was better, the complete desert or the total dropped into the center of the ocean?
Well, you loved the information vacuum because that way, a good way to get some values on things. And but yeah, they used the cart for absolutely everything. They used the cart for Denny after he had his third Natty Light seltzer. There's a thing I'm sure that exists. He needed a cart to get back to the beach house from the beach, but yeah, I mean, the teams, I think, too, like the cart thing has kind of become an arms race. Like, who has the nicest cart? Who can cart someone for the most trivial reason? And, like, yeah, I do not love cart arms race season. But, yeah, I bet they're, like, tricking out the carts now. It's like an extension of the golf cart thing. Yes. Have you noticed the golf cart thing, by the way?
Oh, I mean, well.
Listen, and where I come from, this is a road. And a road is for cars, right? And maybe bikers. No, bikers, but not golf carts. The road is not for golf because the bikers are under no pretension that they're driving a car. They know they're not operating a piece of heavy machinery. The golf cart drivers act like they're driving like something akin to a car. I'm like, no, dude, it's a golf cart. And guess what? I'm late to get my kid from school because guess what? I left 3 minutes late again. And guess what? I'm going to need you to get out of my way.
And guess whose problem that is, buddy? The guy who, if they get tapped by my Subaru at 20 miles an hour, will explode. Your problem.
I do not tailgate people ever, by the way. It's too dangerous. Yeah, the golf cart revolution is harming this country very much, including on the training camp practice fields. The training camp practice field, that's not where you can find Matthew Stafford. It's getting treatment on his lower back, Kyle. Something that's been flaring up off and on for years now. Matthew Stafford, if you're kind of drawing up someone in a lab where it doesn't really matter if they miss several weeks of training camp, Matthew Stafford would maybe be one of them, but you never want the quarterback to be missing time because even if the quarterback doesn't need the reps, everyone around the quarterback needs the reps. And even Stafford might need the reps this summer. Davante Adams, Hall of Famer, a professional's professional. You think they'll be ready to work together week one, but also someone who's been used to his whole career to really meticulous routes, really meticulous timing. I think you could say he's a timing-based receiver. Not that
he's played with two quarterbacks his entire career, Davante Adams. I mean, obviously not literally, but I mean, pretty close to literally playing with two quarterbacks his entire career. The second of whom, Derek Carr, was his college quarterback. So I think if anyone has had the mind meld with multiple quarterbacks over his career, it is very clearly Davante Adams. I didn't come into this thinking that I would use this as an excuse to like Puka more, but as you rolled out your sort of thesis on what's going on, I was like, oh, the new guy, Davante Adams, isn't getting as many reps with the quarterback, while the entrenched veteran, obviously only of 2 years, but clearly he's treated like the entrenched veteran Puka, doesn't need that. He truly does already have the mind meld with Stafford. Guess it's wheels up for Puka, baby. I didn't have that thesis laid out coming into this segment, but you kind of rolled out the red carpet.
It just really does strike me as true because, again, he's always been a mind meld guy. The Rams they're a really meticulous offense too. Look how many different guys have not fit into this offense. Sammy Watkins, Brandon Cooks, Allen Robinson. Maybe there's some physical reasons for some of that with some of those guys. I mean, lots of draft picks that have never really contributed to the Rams either. They seem kind of like Kyle Shanahan in a way. They seem to really like their guys. It's hard to believe Davante Adams won't be one of their guys, but I am just a little concerned to be like, does it make wide receiver 16, 15 where he's been going seem a little too rich for you? Or is it just a situation where even if there's legitimate reason for concern, you kind of have to be like, listen, man, like it's not ideal, but it's still Davante Adams and Matthew Stafford. At the end of the day, it's not going to matter.
So for Davante, a tiny bit concerned. Like you said, honestly, for what Stafford is right now, he absolutely does not to be out there. He's been with McVay for years. He's been in the NFL for like a decade. I mean, probably well over a decade at this point.
Almost 2 decades. Yeah.
I was going to say he's probably 15 years. I'd have to guess, right? Like
2009 is when he came into the league. So we're going on 17th season, I guess.
Oh my Lord. Yes. Like he doesn't need the reps in the most literal sense. And as you kind of brought up, we have done this time and time again. I believe it was in the middle of their Super Bowl run, late in the regular season. We were doing chronic elbow issue every single day, not even week, every day blurbs for Stafford chronic elbow issues. And they just went on to win a Super Bowl. So he's a guy who's just dealt with this stuff. He's managed it as well as you can for, like you said, I mean, he was known as an injury prone guy at the beginning of his career. So I'm not awfully concerned, but I do think there is some risk that Davante Adams, his greatness, not the fact that he's good or even really good, but the fact he's a Hall of Famer, part of that can be attributed to the mind melds he's had. And this is the least mind meld year he'll get, given that it's not his college quarterback. It's not the quarterback he entered the league and played a decade with in Aaron Rodgers. And he's not getting a true offseason if Stafford's going to miss a lot of time. I don't think he's a bad pick by any means, but we think of Adams as such a high floor player. But in general, his efficiency numbers have come down to still good, but just not great in recent years. And he's getting a change in quarterback play. And he's maybe a guy who could be more susceptible to that hurting him. And he's playing with the best wide receiver across from him that he's ever played with. I start to see the risk a little more with the Adams pick now, is all I'll say.
And with Stafford, too, even if we were healthy now, like he's an injury risk, even if he was 100% healthy right now, as you kind of laid out. And he does a good job of playing through injury when they're contending. When they're not contending, they tend to shut it down. If you look at his injury history, sports injury predictor, I believe that's what it's called. Like his injury chart looks like the World War II fighter jet flak meme. Yeah. Like he's got red dots all over his body. It just gets longer and longer. I remember something that stuck with me from the playoffs. He ran one single time against the Eagles. Like he decided he had to take off and scramble. And like he was like, I've never seen someone get the wind knocked out of them harder. He took one hit and he was like gasping for air for several plays. And he is at a point of his career or he's almost an any given hit type quarterback at this point with Matthew Stafford. And, there's a reason, like, I guess it was mostly money related, but the Rams did at least consider letting Matthew Stafford go, moving on from Matthew Stafford. And this is just maybe a slightly more tenuous situation.
That feels like so long ago that we were doing will they, won't they discourse with Stafford. And it was like 3 months ago or whatever. It was just it was the beginning of the offseason. Man, time flies when nothing is happening, to be fair. When nothing has happened, it feels like time goes slow.
So something to stay dialed in on there, though, where Puka, has been an injury risk early in his career. Matthew Stafford, an increasing injury risk. Someone who has never been an injury risk, at least in terms of missing time, is Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon has actually been hurt a lot in his career, but he's played through it almost every single time. He tends to miss like 1 or 2 games per year. He's never really had an extended absence. He's having an extended absence this offseason into training camp, a foot issue that just keeps lingering. The Nick Chubb signing kind of out of nowhere in June was very interesting, very curious, but people didn't know how much to read into it. We know exactly how much to read into it now, which is a lot, where the reports aren't even guaranteeing Joe Mixon will be ready for week 1, Kyle. He's one of the longest running, like undead zombie RB1-2s, always on that borderline. He's not on the RB1-2 borderline this year. It's more the RB2-3 borderline, kind of like the lower 20s for his ADP. But is this the setting up for yet another Joe Mixon rug pull? Like, yep, kind of like Mike Evans, like, yep, didn't draft Joe Mixon again this year, and he scored 12 touchdowns again this year. How concerned should we be about Joe Mixon? What are you regarding him as, the RB what? How are you prioritizing the people behind him? Nick Chubb, whose own coach is saying, like, listen, he's real tough. He doesn't have anything left in the tank, but he's a tough guy. Or 4th rounder Woody Marks. Just lay out the Texans running back situation.
Yeah, I mean, the first we heard of this foot/ankle issue, I think it's been reported as both at different points, is that he was in a walking boot in May and couldn't participate in OTAs. But the reporting then was that he's going to be ready for training camp. Then a week or two later, we get he's going to be ready at some point in training camp. We meant at any point, right? It could be the first day, could be the last day. Now the latest reporting is that, well, we don't know if he'll be ready for week 1, but it'll be early in the year. This is a 29-year-old running back who injured his ankle last year, who is coming off of what is at this point going to be at best, like, let's say it happened the day before OTAs, which is like the last day of May, essentially. It seems like a 3-month ankle injury, 29 years old, declining efficiency metrics, heading into the season, like maybe not ready for week 1. Like, what am I supposed to do with this? There's almost no price you can name that I will be drafting him. I think fantasy drafters are going to anchor way too much to the starting cost that they had, which was that high-end RB2 kind of price. He's going to fall into like the RB late 30s, early 40s for me. He's a really poor early season bet in that I don't know if he's going to be playing football early in the season. He is a really poor late season bet, and that he is a running back who is old and injured heading into his like 10th and 9th NFL season, probably like 8th or 9th actually.
8th or 9th, I believe.
This is what the end looks like. So do I think he'll still have juice at the end of the season? Not really. Do I know if he's playing football at the beginning? I don't know. I kind of don't think he plays in week 1. Week 2 or 3 seems like what I would guess is his return, being sort of cautious about it. Like you said, though, there's not a ton of value to be had looking deeper on the roster, because Nick Chubb is honestly in a very similar spot. He's healthy right now, but he has been, like, last year, obviously it was a very bad situation, but every single bit of juice he had was sapped. He just did not look like the Nick Chubb of old, coming off of a catastrophic knee injury. And for good measure, he breaks his foot to end the year. And then he goes a very long time without being signed, to the point where it took an injury on the Texans roster, obviously, to get him a contract. The only thing this leaves me with is, like, deeper best ball leagues. I'm going to be throwing some darts at Woody Marks. He was an extremely good pass catcher in college. He played in those Mike Leach systems where they throw just a ton of passes. He got some as the running back. I don't think he was the most, I know for a fact, he wasn't the most efficient running back as a pass catcher, but man, he did it with great volume. Is he good between the tackles? It's not to dig too deep into the profile, right? I just want a guy who I think can go out and play some on early downs and be an effective pass catcher. And the team invested a decent amount in him, because like you said, they spent a 4th round pick. They also traded a future 3rd to acquire that 4th round pick to get him. So they're invested in him being a long-term asset to the team. Do I think he's a long-term fun dynasty kind of bet? No, I kind of thought he had a relatively weak profile coming out, but the path is getting as clear as it can get for a guy of his profile.
You call him Woody. I call him Jocavius. And how dare you besmirch his dynasty profile? I really, really wanted a running back. I needed one for my dynasty team that I thought might contribute this season. So during our draft in May, I traded a future 3rd rounder to take Woody Marks in this year's 3rd round. This is a long way of saying I'm a genius, Kyle.
Did you actually? You did the exact same
I did actually
thing?
do this. I'm not even kidding. And I think you framed the whole situation really well, though, or it is a boomerang. It's just not the beginning of the season. This is, what are the odds Joe Mixon's going to be healthy by the end of the season at this point? A guy who just takes so many hits. You mentioned last year's ankle injury. He rushed back after like 2 or 3 games and then somehow played the rest of the year, after suffering a hip drop tackle. Impressive toughness, but that takes a toll. And he's done so many things like that during his career. And that's what I really worry about with Joe Mixon, that is just catching up with him. Woody Marks is the flyer I would take if I'm drafting Texans running backs. Joe Mixon, if he maybe falls into the 30s, I might have to say that's a no for me, dog, on your policy of passing on him. Because Joe Mixon, even today, I frankly think I might want Joe Mixon over Caleb Johnson. Is that totally insane?
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. You have fun though.
Yeah, I just something about Caleb that is not sitting well with me. Joe Mixon or DeAndre Swift?
Swift, easily. I wouldn't even consider it.
David Montgomery's ADP is real bad. Much rather have David Montgomery than Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon or RB26? This is the best ball sickos. Isaiah Pacheco.
He doesn't strike me as a guy best ball sickos like though. So I don't know. Like they don't like the plotters. Like they like the Rashard Smiths who like they're never going to see the field. But what if they did?
They do.
Like,
That's true.
I love. Speaking of, I love Rashard Smith. By the way, yeah, I'll still take Pacheco. Like Pacheco is the exact same bet as Mixon, except he's healthy right now. Like I don't know what Pacheco has left in the tank. He did not play well last year. He's active for week 1. I know that. So I'll just take that bet.
Mixon, at least until we get more information, sounds like we both think is a stay away. Another guy who's hurt. Another guy we've actually talked about. I had been talking about him as a potential bargain. He was the wide receiver 47, 46 for a while. He finished, I think, wide receiver 32, 33 last year. That's Darnell Mooney. Injured his shoulder. Appears he's going to miss most of training camp, Kyle. Doesn't seem like there's a lot of concern about his week 1 status. I do have concern, though, about him missing, new starting quarterback, Michael Penix. I'm assuming he needs to build chemistry with Michael Penix. And I feel like there's a risk, that if he doesn't know the offense, if he doesn't know Michael Penix's play style, even if he's ready for week 1, that Darnell Mooney kind of becomes a cardio all-star, runs a lot of routes, but is more clearing out space than catching the ball. Am I overthinking this? And that the real focus should just be Darnell Mooney is so much better than the players behind him, like Ray McLeod Jr. Where do you fall?
The stuff you said at first kind of struck a chord with me. Not that, like you said, as a purely he finishes higher than his ADP type of bet, he made a lot of sense. Like you said, he was being drafted as if fantasy managers completely forgot about him when he was functionally a good wide receiver 3/flex kind of play. But the bet was always small win, small miss. They don't, like you said, they do not have another guy who can come. They don't have a rookie, right? An exciting rookie who can just come up and take that.
Who is the 4th receiver on the Falcons? Do you actually know off the top of your head?
It's Kadarius Hodge.
That's right, Kadarius Hodge.
He started to creep into the Raven McLeod routes just a tiny bit at the end of the year. But now, so I'll get to that in a second.
I had genuinely forgotten.
Yeah. I mean, no, actually. So we can fold this into Darnell Mooney. It's now maybe DJ Chark. They signed DJ Chark the moment Darnell Mooney went down with the injury as a very clear, I think at a minimum, he's going to be out probably for most of camp. And that's what the reporting is set to.
I saw a blurb that we had that DJ Shark had signed, and here's what I did. I just glossed over it and didn't even look at which team I was on. DJ Shark doesn't matter.
So, but bringing it all the way back to Darnell Mooney, as opposed to just I could honestly just sit here and name random players for the longest time. It's a pretty fun game to play, but bringing it back to Mooney, it was always a small win, small miss. I don't see how someone could jump him in routes. I don't see how someone could jump him in targets. Ray McLeod isn't going to out target him. But now there are more avenues to him just not being a focal point as the number 2 pass catcher. Kyle Pitts could increase his target share. They could throw more to the running backs. They could spread out which wide receiver 3s they're throwing to more. So it just creates a little bit more room for it to be a small win and medium-sized miss bet. And that's just not the kind of bet I want to be making. At this point, it's very clear we should be flipping Michael Pittman over him, where Michael Pittman is in the same vein. It's not fun. I don't think we're getting the super exciting season from Michael Pittman, but it's just less of a small win, medium miss, and it's just a small kind of bet. And a lot of fantasy rosters do need a small win at wide receiver, especially think about best ball where they're drafting wide receivers sickeningly and you get shut out because you're taking the running back values, right? To let you start Saquon, Chase Brown, and Josh Jacobs. That's a fun running back trio. I can get on board with that, but you got to start putting points on the board at wide receiver somewhere. I can see how Mooney would have fit that bill, but now it's more of a Pittman kind of bet.
Yeah, I think we just have the same takeaway there where we're not really concerned about the health or week 1 status, even after signing DJ Shark. But before, I thought he could outproduce his ADP by maybe 10 to 12 spots. Now it's maybe 4 to 5, and it just becomes a classic, if we're lucky, it just becomes a classic, what do you win when you win? Okay, yeah, great. Darnell Mooney was the wide receiver 43. Here's your 7th place trophy.
Yeah.
So Darnell Mooney, a guy I had been intrigued by, less so now. We'll keep his status updated all summer on rotoworld.com. Courtland Sutton, someone we never talk about because he's boring. It's the Mike Evans principle. I said in a VOD we did where a really good real life player, never quite gets his due in fantasy just because he doesn't do the things we care about in fantasy. He does score a lot of touchdowns. He does not stack the scam receptions. I don't think he's ever had more than 1,100 yards. He's just coming off his first 1,000-yard season since 2019. Coaches love what he does on the real-life field. He commands defensive attention. He catches tough sideline passes. He catches touchdowns. Clearly, they love him if they're giving him $92 million. Not all that's guaranteed, whatever. Now, how do you feel about Courtland Sutton? Someone no one ever wants to talk about. Someone no one really wants to draft, unless there's like a true spreadsheet drafter where they know you have to draft everyone. What is your take on Courtland Sutton this summer?
Yeah, like you said, I haven't been excited to draft him either. I don't think he's a guy who's going to go out and rip like a 1,600-yard season or have the complete breakout that I think maybe other players in his range can. This does affirm that like he is a really good bet to hit that 11 or maybe even 1,200 mark. And you look at what the Broncos were in the second half of the season last year, they were just night and day better at passing. I remember you were like pounding the drum for Bo Nix is a mono threat. He cannot pass the football after 2 months. He was terrible at passing the football through 2 months. You were right. You're absolutely right that we had really strong rushing production, some rushing touchdowns. He even caught a receiving, like Bo Nix caught receiving touchdown that I believe Sutton threw as well through 2 months. Like it was just, you were just coasting along as like a low end QB1, high end QB2 because the rushing was good and he was running good on touchdowns. Then from the second half of the season, I bracketed off at October onward, he really just started to blossom as a passer. From October onward, he was on pace for 40 passing touchdowns. In that stretch, Courtland Sutton was on pace for over 1,300 receiving yards. Like it was just truly what we expect from a rookie of essentially any position. Once they start to get the rhythms of the NFL, if they're in a good situation, they can really break out. So, and then, obviously they've invested at the running back position, but they also invested a good bit in their pass catchers as well with Pat Bryant, with Evan Ingram. I mean, even their running backs, especially RJ Harvey, look like they could be difference makers as pass catchers. So it's probably smart for me to start mixing in more Courtland Sutton. It's not the most fun bet to make, but if we just get that year 2 leap from Bo Nix, Courtland Sutton is going to be the biggest beneficiary of all because he's the only one I think is going to run all the routes. I think they're going to rotate every single other wide receiver, and it's going to be so annoying. Sutton doesn't have that risk built in.
Courtland Sutton, about to turn 30 years old, going as the wide receiver 27. Last year, he was the wide receiver 19 or 20, depending on your injury sliders by average PPR points. So there's a disconnect there, but I do think I agree with the average summer fantasy drafter that they're just betting for more upside. The last year was probably honestly Courtland Sutton's ceiling. You could say like, that's a pretty nice ceiling to have all those touchdowns, 1,100 yards, but I think that was probably going to be the best year of the rest of Courtland Sutton's career. And they're not even necessarily paying him to better that. Maybe they are paying him to repeat.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're probably about right. If the reporting's correct, $23 million a year has him right in line with Michael Pittman. What Terry McLaurin's at right now? Obviously, McLaurin wants another contract, and Calvin Ridley, who are like their team's wide receiver ones, but not teams wide receiver ones where like when the draft comes around, you're like, we can't be drafting. We're loaded at wide receiver. You want them. Like you want the Colts, which they did at tight end, obviously. The Commanders, they went out and went for Deebo Samuel via trade with their draft capital. Like these are players who are their wide receiver ones until they're not. And all of them, maybe Michael Pittman, not so much. Frankly, maybe Terry McLaurin, not so much. So yeah, they're just their wide receiver ones until they're not. And they're good at that role, but they're never going to be great.
So we're staying in Denver. J.K. Dobbins, one of the biggest threats, I feel like, to cool fantasy players this summer where everyone went nuts and RJ Harvey. Was he at one point like the RB 14 or 15?
I don't think I ever got that high, but it got high.
He was in the teens, the second rounder, RJ Harvey. The worst kept secret, not even a secret, like the biggest truism of the offseason maybe was that the Broncos needed to upgrade their backfield. They did it with RJ Harvey, but then they did it with J.K. Dobbins, the competent veteran, non-explosive guy, had 200-yard games in weeks 1 and 2 last year, then was basically never heard from again. But coaching staffs love him. Fantasy managers hate him. I'm speaking in clickbait style. Sean Payton, unsurprisingly, has talked up J.K. Dobbins making a swift transition to the Broncos offense. He's the RB 35 right now. RJ Harvey's around the RB 20. We're getting more concerned, less concerned, or is this all already baked in? Yeah. Like, what a surprise. The veteran Dobbins looks like he knows what he's doing.
That's mostly how I feel. It is always good to sort of check in with like, did I appropriately adjust my, like, what do I expect from week 1? Do I think I can just draft RJ Harvey and play him right out of the gates? Like every time I see this, it's a reminder that if we go out and we see 8 carries, 3 targets from RJ Harvey in week 1, like that should just kind of be, maybe not the expectation, but at least within the range of outcomes. So if you're drafting someone like RJ Harvey, there are some decent veterans to pair him with that are really cheap. Like I think Ramondre Stevenson's going to play a pretty meaningful role in the first 1, to 6 weeks of the season. I'm very excited. I'm very excited about Trevion Henderson.
Getting the slider at 1, huh?
I know. Look, if Trevion Henderson's awesome in week 1, week 2, I'm like, let's just start him. But in the first month or so, first 2 months, I do think we should expect somewhat of a role, like a meaningful role, the starting role as a 1A from someone like Ramondre Stevenson. Now that we're getting like Tank Bigsby hype, maybe we get a discount on Travis Etienne. And he is, again, a guy who I don't think he's a good bet to be leading the backfield down the stretch. But I also don't want to make some of the mistakes I made last year, where I kind of nailed the most fun running backs. I was all over Bucky, all over Rico, all over Chase Brown. It's really hard.
Hell yes.
It was so fun. It was hard to get there because they weren't hitting until weeks 8, 9, 10. And I was struggling to put up running back points until those guys hit. And I think, like, if you got the Bucky Irving season from RJ Harvey, which I think was like 1,500 yards from scrimmage, like good pass catch and stuff, we'd be thrilled with that. And if you didn't make the playoffs because you didn't plan to need some amount of running back points in the first month, you were very frustrated. And that happened to me a lot. So just a good reminder on, even if, and I do feel strongly that RJ Harvey is still a good bet to be an RB2, maybe even like a very high-end RB2 in December, like, got to build your rosters to take advantage of that.
I'll just say, too, the risk with RJ Harvey is be wary of the between the 20s trap, where he could especially begin the season as a between the 20s guy, where just give it to J.K. Dobbins at the goal line. RJ Harvey's catching passes, like really important third downs. J.K. Dobbins is out there because he's more experienced at leaking out, or he's more experienced, picking up the blitz, where you might have to stay the between the 20s course for a while with RJ Harvey. Kind of like you basically laid it out perfectly, where the RJ Harvey returns maybe don't necessarily count on the weeks 1 and 2. But week Halloween, baby, that's when fantasy season really starts. Once November turns around, the leaves are on the ground. That's RJ Harvey season. Let's take a quick break season. We'll be right back after this. Thursday night, the NFL preseason kicks off as the Lions face the Chargers in the Hall of Fame game. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern on NBC and, of course, streaming on Peacock. I will be watching. We got to make some DFS sicko lineups for this, by the way. You're gonna have to
Keandre Lambert-Smith, Chargers, like maybe wide receiver 3, probably closer like wide receiver 5, 6. And I think the Chargers depth is a little banged up right now. They're going to give him some run. They're going to give Lambert-Smith run. He might be the perfect balance of like too good to be out there, but you kind of just have to put him out there. And I think they have Taylor Heineke on that roster. They have Trey Lance. Who has Trey Lance? Don't they have Trey Lance?
I wish you didn't know this, but the receiver you were just talking about, but it's on NBC, Hall of Fame game, preseason football, 2025 NFL football is finally here. Listen, Kyle, we know all about the spirit Halloweens going up in all of our yards for our various mistakes. I feel like you're going to be like paid in Spirit Halloween stock for the rest of your life. If Drake Maye is a hit and if he's a bust, like there's just nothing but Spirit Halloweens forever in your future, just one after another being built in your yard. You need Drake Maye to be a dual threat. I know this. He's claiming he might not run as much, that he doesn't want to just like go through 1 or 2 reads and then tuck it and run. Clearly, like they have a hardo coaching staff in there now. I know Josh McDaniels and Mike Vrabel are telling him, you got to stand in the pocket. You got to be tough, young man. Are you actually worried about this? Or is this just something that every running quarterback says this time of year? And the second the actual season begins, like, guess what, buddy? I came here to go through my progressions and then immediately tuck and run, and I'm all out of going through my progressions.
I mean, you nailed it. And I think the one thing that would maybe give me pause is if, and I've said this before, but as if a lot of Drake Maye's rushing production came on designed carries, something that coaches can obviously control to an extremely high degree, but he was just a scrambler. Like he just is a scrambler at heart. In terms of like pressured scramble rate, he's one of the higher quarterbacks coming. Like he did that a good bit in college. He did it again in the NFL. And then he averaged more yards per carry than any other quarterback since Michael Vick. Like he was so good at scrambling. I think part of that is like picking your spots. Part of that is he's a giant, awesome athlete. Like he is like built very similar to Josh Allen in that sense. He's really fast. He's big. He's hard to bring down. And he's reckless, to be fair. He is absolutely, completely reckless. And if that results in injuries, which it did last year, it's really frustrating. But more often than not, it doesn't result in injuries. Like Josh Allen also plays like a complete moron, like once a year. He just has not. He's gotten lucky.
He doesn't do it enough anymore, to be honest.
I know. Like, how long ago has it been since he tried to pitch it to Dawson Knox, like in a playoff game? I think we need one of those like once a month, not once every 3 years. No. But that is kind of the style that Drake Maye plays. I think it's very endemic to him as a football player. It's not a part of the offense. So, and also, didn't we have Mike Vrabel out there like calling a bunch of like bootleg stuff and runs for Ryan Tannehill back in the day when they were running like, I think what's going to end up being a similar.
There were a lot of naked boots for Ryan
right?
Tannehill. Yeah, a lot of naked boots.
I mean, the amount of times on the broadcast, Ryan Tannehill would scramble, and then so-and-so on the broadcast would be
Tanny's a pretty good comp, actually, for Drake Maye.
A little bit, yeah. Too. Former wide receiver Ryan Tannehill. You know how many times I had to hear that?
I know. So, yeah, I'm not too worried about it either. To be honest, it's almost like the opposite of a red flag that Drake Maye at least realizes this, that he should be thinking and saying that. But yeah, it's not going to happen. Not too worried about it. And yeah, the Patriots, I'm probably underrating the opportunity, the possibility that the Patriots just embrace that. They know that what makes him special. Josh McDaniels, say what you will about him, actually has called kind of a variety of styles throughout his play calling career. He oversaw Cam Newton in New England. And lest we forget, this was the man who actually drafted Tim Tebow. Someone literally drafted Tim Tebow in the first round, and it was Josh McDaniels. So he's open to the quarterback running.
I'm a total Josh McDaniels hater, but like those kind of did it for me. I like felt in my bones like, dang, he did do those things, didn't he?
So Drake Maye, it's never been more the opposite of over. He never went away, but he's never been more back, despite his comments. Talking about never been more back is Jaydon Blue. Because one guy who coached the Cowboys 20 years ago insinuated that someone might have told him he was lazy. And then, everyone had to aggregate it. Everyone had to report it. We had to talk about it. But it turns out it was just some guy saying something. And we don't know what the current coaching staff really thinks. The assembled Cowboys press, though, has been very impressed with Jaydon Blue for the first week of Cowboys training camp. Have we actually learned anything new, gotten any new data points here? I know it sounds like the veterans are taking the bulk of the reps right now. Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders. Anything to get us excited or anything to give us more pause on Jaydon Blue?
Yeah, so I'm a bit more of on the giving us pause side because the Cowboys coaching staff, as you said, was like very kind in their words to him right after it wasn't even 20 years ago. It was almost 24. I think that guy coached.
I think it was the literal turn of the century. Yeah, about a quarter century ago.
He coached for them for like 1 year.
2 years.
And then 2 years, yeah. And like you said, at the turn of the century, now he's coming out of the woodwork to slander Jaydon Blue. I'll slander Jaydon Blue too, but not as a person. He's probably a fine guy. I just don't think he was a particularly great running back prospect, like especially in terms of like the fantasy upside we want in a few capacities, because he did not see really any work on the ground in terms of what can make you think he can translate.
He can't run at all, but that's fine.
Right? Like, I don't want to be unkind, but he's not a between tackles player, and he is potentially a good scat back, right? He truly was a good yards per route run pass catcher. He didn't run an awful lot of routes because even as a pass catcher, he was still platooned, and he, despite being really fast, was not actually explosive on a per carry basis. So I'm not really sure what the ceiling with him is. If there was an argument to be made that he has a high floor and that like he's just going to step into a role right away, I feel like that's fine. I don't need all the ceiling in the world. If you're telling me
that is the thesis of the play, by the way, right? That if anyone's going to step into a known role at the beginning of the season, it could be Jaydon Blue, third down back, right? Or at least pass catching back, not necessarily.
Yeah, and then I go and I try and dig up some articles on like, okay, so what's his training camp looking like through 1 week? And it was like, here's a splash play, a handoff from Joe Milton. Here's a target from Joe Milton. Joe Milton takes the snap. He's only running with Joe Milton. I know. He's only running with Joe Milton in the backups. And I'm going to
Shaq Kobeing with Joe Milton.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're having a good camp. They are having a good camp. And they're gonna run stuff with the Birmingham Stallions. But like, I don't know what the role is for him early in the season. And we even have, I'm sorry, I'm going to mess up this name. I feel like you now, is the Athletics John Machota. It's a CH name. And I don't know if it's Machota. I think it's Machota. I listened to a podcast with him on it before, and I've already forgot it, was saying that like Deuce Vaughn is battling for that RB3 role still between both, well, the trio of Deuce Vaughn, Phil Maffa, the other day 3 pick, and Jaydon Blue. Like, for a guy like Jaydon Blue, I want you to instantly dust Deuce Vaughn. I do not want to be hearing this guy's name. No. And this is also from Machota saying that Javonte Williams has looked the best. Then he said Miles Sanders. And then he talked about Davante Turpin getting gadget work too in what was like his most recent article for The Athletic, talking about what he's seen from the backfield. Didn't even mention Blue there. He mentioned Blue and Deuce Vaughn on a podcast appearance. So I'm not seeing anything that makes me think there's much of a roll out of the gates. Maybe he's an okay bet in best ball, right? Because he is fast. He didn't break a ton of long runs in college, but he was a really efficient pass catcher, really explosive pass catcher. And his speed should translate to some long gains. But in redraft, this strikes me as a week 3 cut. Like, clearly he's just not getting on the field early in the season. We're like, wow, Davante Turpin, 9 carries in 3 games. Like, where's Jaydon Blue? And you just have to cut him.
Long way to go with the Cowboys backfield saga. I haven't seen any preseason reps yet, but I think you laid it out pretty well. The good news is we're not seeing like really negative Jaydon Blue reports. We're not seeing like the super positive glowing ones we really need. And yeah, the good news is you're doing the Shaq Kobe meme. The bad news is you're doing it with Joe Milton. We need you to do it with Dak Prescott. Sticking in Dallas real quick, we won't have a ton to say on this one. Jake Ferguson ended up horribly overdrafted last year. He might be underdrafted this year as the tight end 15. The Cowboys still really like him. 4-year, $52 million extension. Everyone's waiting for them to extend Micah Parsons. Like, can't do that. Best I can do is Jake Ferguson, the tight end who wasn't even good last year. He was tied for 12th in tight end receptions last year, even though he missed 3 games. Barely in the top 24 in fantasy, though, because he didn't score any touchdowns. That's known as a Conklin. We're thinking the touchdowns are coming back since Dak Prescott is coming back. But is Jake Ferguson a guy really worth devoting summer drafting mind space to, Kyle?
He's fine. I think maybe he's a bet in redraft where if you just totally punt at the tight end position and you want to attack tight end through depth, right? Like, I need a breakout season from one of Brenton Strange, Jake Ferguson,
yes.
Kyle Pitts, whatever.
I'm like so much Brenton Strange, man.
Me too. I think it's a good pick.
It's not, I think he's a good pick too, but they're pouring the foundation for what was the bank I made up? They're pouring the foundation for the new bank in my backyard.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is the high floor bet. And like you said, he got a bunch of receiving volume. You said 12th in receptions, missed some games last year. And we would expect the touchdowns to flow forth, especially as they get their quarterback for presumably the entire year in Dak Prescott. And they have done nothing, to me at least, to indicate that they are doing anything but that 2023 Cowboys attack, where I believe Dak Prescott led the NFL in completions. He was like top 5 in attempts and yards. I believe he led the NFL in touchdowns that year as well. CeeDee Lamb obviously gets second, I believe, to Tyreek Hill in terms of total receiving yards. And they go out. They have now Dak Prescott, the number 1 paid quarterback in terms of just average annual salary.
Brilliant cap management, sir.
Well, the thing is, you get charged a pretty steep tax when you wait until like it's Sunday at 11:45. You're like, man, kickoff's in 1 hour and 15. We should really finish that extension.
Yeah,
so you get charged a pretty steep tax when you decide to play hardball with like the best players in the NFL. CeeDee Lamb, 3rd highest paid wide receiver. Now Jake Ferguson probably somewhere in the top 5. I haven't checked the numbers since he signed. Oh, and they traded for George Pickens, obviously. So they're investing a ton of resources in their passing game, even if that kind of means we're probably getting like a lower targets per route run for Jake Ferguson. I love it that he's going to be on a good team that's going to pass the ball all the time. Like, that's enough for him to pay off the tight end 15 cost.
I don't think people were upset about drafting Jake Ferguson last year. The ADP is so much more reasonable this year. I think that should be the takeaway. You probably won't be upset drafting Jake Ferguson. He's not going to win your league, but more weeks than not, you might feel comfortable plugging him in as a low-end tight end 1. But we're going to take a short break. Then we're going to talk about some players you might be upset about drafting right after this. Tune in to NBC Sports Now for all the biggest stories in sports, beginning at 7 a.m. Eastern with PFT Live, followed by the Dan Patrick Show, the Dan Lebitard Show, Fantasy Football Happy Hour, and Chris Sims Unbuttoned. The NBC Sports Now channel is available on Peacock, the Roku channel, Samsung TV Plus, and more. Visit NBCSports.com/now for more details. So yeah, Kai, we got our draft guide just about finished. Going up on the site, free profiles, free rankings, free articles, free everything. But I was about to make an inappropriate transition metaphor there. The rankings are free, but a lot of work goes into them. And when there's a lot of work, there's some disagreement. You don't have to.
I get what you're getting at.
You can catch the drift there. We disagreed on some guys. One of them was Aaron Jones versus Jordan Mason. First off, do you have the spreadsheet handy so you could tell people where we had them ranked? And then can we go through Our differences of opinion on these guys. Jordan Mason versus Aaron Jones, by the way. So that's one where we're getting like a lot of coach quotes. So I had Aaron Jones ranked a lot higher than you did. You had Jordan Mason ranked a lot higher than I did. Mason's been getting first team reps so far in camp. Not all of them, but Kevin O'Connell's been really cagey. He was asked about the rotation. He says, I'm not sure. It's going to roll how it's going to roll. Love to hear that if I'm Aaron Jones. You can look at it a lot of ways. And again, I love to hear that if I'm Aaron Jones. Say a very interesting, very bullish comments if you're a Jordan Mason booster like yourself, and very bearish if you had Aaron Jones ranked higher like I did. What is our disagreement, and where do you stand?
Yeah, so I thank you for filibustering. I don't know if you could see the look on my face. I need to pull up these rankings.
Yep, that's
good work, good teamwork. You have Aaron Jones, and by you, I mean to some degree me as well, because I have some influence. I can only push you so far on some of these. Some of these I can reel you back in a little bit, and you probably had him higher earlier maybe, and I got to bring you back into earth a little bit. You right now have him as the RB26. I believe last I checked he goes in best ball drafts, not exactly the same thing as the RB28. I frankly don't even love taking him as the RB28 there. And Jordan Mason, you have just a few spots behind as the RB30. I think that's actually exactly in line with ADP.
It is on ADP. You were right on both their ADPs. 28 for Jones, 30 for Mason.
And to me, I think the risk is very clearly inlaid with Aaron Jones. He's coming off of his worst year in yards after contact since 2018. It was, including the playoffs at least, it was a career worst year in breakaway rate, career worst year in yards per carry, worst year by missed tackles forced since 2017, worst year in yards per route run since 2018. That was like his second, 2018 to second.
Everything looks bad if you remember it.
So it's kind of what a guy on his last leg starts to look like. And then they go out and they trade for a running back who was really good last year. Jordan Mason was 10th in yards after contact per carry. He was 6th in breakaway rate. And
limited sample sizes, but he was an efficiency beast. Yes.
Yes. And to be fair, that offense was really good at turning running backs into efficiency beasts too. So you would expect the starting running back at any point for the 49ers to be good. Obviously, sometimes they're really, really good if they're Christian McCaffrey. But with that being said, he did look really good last year. We only have a small sample, but it was a good sample. And then they spend meaningful draft capital to acquire him. And then they immediately start telling us, like, we view him as the goal line back. Like, the guy who scores the fantasy points.
They did quite literally immediately start saying that.
Coaches never immediately tell us the stuff we want to hear in terms of just the useful information, whether or not it's good or bad for you, up to your interpretation. But just the useful info. They're like, I don't know, here's how we think the fantasy points per game is going to split out. They never tell us that. And they told us right away. So to me, I'm just really inclined to take the younger, more efficient running back who they've told us they want to score the touchdowns, as opposed to Aaron Jones, who does undoubtedly have the pass catching role unlocked. That's one aspect that just isn't involved in Jordan Mason's game at all. But I think if like one of these guys emerges to see just the bulk of the carries, it is absolutely Jordan Mason. If one of them is going to score 12 touchdowns, it's probably Jordan Mason. So to me, I'm a little behind ADP on Aaron Jones. You're a little bit ahead, which is really where the problem is. Both of us like Jordan Mason, I think, relatively equally.
I would say, so my only counter take here at all is they definitely want that with Jordan Mason. Sure. Now, is he actually ready for that after being a career backup, after being babied along in the Shanny system? Who knows? But not good news for Aaron Jones that they're clearly determined to figure that out if he's ready for that. Or like they do want that. They're seeing if that is a possibility. And I think maybe the real bearish indicator for Aaron Jones that I maybe just didn't think about enough. So, last year he actually stays healthy. He goes over 1,100 yards. Has a much better season than really fantasy managers were expecting from just like a raw production standpoint. It really only happened because they got caught flat-footed behind him. Ty Chandler just wasn't ready to be the backup. They acquired for Cam Akers for like the third or fourth time, it felt like, via trade. And he was fine, but he's not going to push Aaron Jones at this stage of his career. Jordan Mason, they think he's ready to push Aaron Jones. That's pretty clear. I gave Jones a little veteran deference in the rankings, but these quotes kind of make it like you might just have to give up the ghost. And it requires a lot of projection, but the projection is starting to look like Jordan Mason's be the guy I prefer to have in fantasy. It's very interesting because they're so close in ADP. I wish there was like a bigger gulf, kind of.
I kind of thought that too. I didn't think I was confident enough to flip them in ADP. I still think tepidly we should be drafting Aaron Jones ahead, but like I'm fine putting them back to back. And frankly, like If you told me the ADP was flipped and I had to draft Jordan Mason first, I'd be like, I'll just do what people tell me to, and I'll take Jordan Mason first. Like, I don't have a spine, so I'll just do that.
I need to get Aaron Jones down to my rankings, but man, it's just a weird year in fantasy. I keep saying there's no good wide receiver ADPs. I'm just not really loving any. Not loving RB26 for Isaiah Pacheco, RB29 for Brian Robinson Jr. Just a lot of, I don't know. Well, I'm really not loving RB23 for Caleb Johnson. I'm not entirely sure why, but you were really not loving my Alvin Kamara rank. I think you did talk me into lowering him a little bit. What is it? What is yours? What's the problem? And I'll make the case for why Alvin Kamara needs to be a little higher.
All right, your Alvin Kamara rank is bad, and mine is good.
That's right.
And no, your Alvin Kamara rank is RB15, ADP. I don't
10 spots below where he finished last year.
I mean, if you're looking to win your September fantasy leagues, I do have a good pick for you.
September counts just as much as November. To win in the playoffs, you do have to make the playoffs, young man.
I agree that you do have to make the playoffs, but I just don't love the bet being so focused on like, we all know you can't win a fantasy playoff game with this player. Like, and the data generally doesn't back it up.
It is more to the fact, listen, we can't forecast what's going to happen in November. We can forecast what's going to happen in September. Best ball, you have to really try to forecast what's going to happen in November, December. You know, home redraft leagues, it's kind of like, listen, we'll do some projection, but also let's control what we control. We know who's getting the ball in September.
It's less extreme. It is absolutely less extreme. In the final week of your redraft league, you play against a guy in accounting who drafted like Jameis Winston with his third pick because he thinks Jameis is cool, which to be fair, he's right. Jameis is cool, but he just blows that pick every year on his favorite quarterback. Whereas in Best Ball Mania, you draft against, or you in the final week, you are playing against hundreds of people to win way more money, but your odds of winning that money are way, way, way less because it's hundreds of people you're competing against. So they are different games. But over the past 4 years, Alvin Kamara has averaged 12 PPR points per game in the fantasy playoffs. I do not care if you were playing in the little schnauzer but super flex 6 or if you were playing in a home league with your college buddies. I do not want that player on my team.
Maybe that's a little bad luck, maybe arbitrary sample size stuff.
It is.
It is. But there's also an element of he's a guy who gets banged up a lot and misses time. And also he's been on bad teams, so he gets sad a lot late in the year. The Saints look like one of the absolute worst teams in the league this year. He could easily. I
misheard you, and I thought you said he gets sad with a D at the end of the year, and I was like, I bet he does.
He probably does get very sad at the end of the year. That is a real risk with Alvin Kamara, but he's kind of the Mike Evans of running backs. For every year you never want to draft. He was literally the RB5 by average PPR points.
It's a lot of points.
Just kind of insane. But I mean, Alvin Kamara. So Adams he's RB18 an underdog right now. He's in the Chuba Hubbard. I'd rather have him than Chuba Hubbard. I'll say. I'd probably rather have him than Kenneth Walker III too. I don't know if I'd rather have him than James Conner at this point. He's in an unstable, uncertain part of the board. And in general, when someone says, I don't want to draft the old guy, I'm like, yeah, that sounds pretty smart to me. So we'll see what happens with our Kamara ranking. I was just kind of doing it as a can't fight City Hall ranking. Like, I don't even, and two, I'm just projecting who's going to have the most points at the end of the year. And Alvin Kamara, I mean, I don't think anyone would be shocked if he was in the top 15 in our at least PPR points per game. Final guy, Isaiah Likely. You apparently don't. I was told that Kyle Dvorchak liked cool players. Apparently he doesn't. I released the tapes. I have him as tight end what? You have him as tight end what?
You have him as tight end 12. So the final final tight end 1. I am literally in the middle of finalizing my best ball ranks. They'll be, I don't know when they'll be released, but they'll be done by the end of the day. I think I had him somewhere in like the tight end like 18 range, like top 20 for sure, but just not remotely who you want to be your first tight end. And to me, so I'm gonna start by capitulating just a little bit. There is supposed Twitter chatter that he may be getting an extension here, and if you tell me Mark Andrews is a free agent this coming year, he almost certainly will not be back with the team, and they're obviously going to extend, or it seems like they're going to extend Isaiah Likely. That's extremely bullish for his 2025 outlook. That tells me the transition is being made to Isaiah Likely as their future at tight end. But I also think Isaiah Likely, for the purposes of your rankings, is the perfect player to be low on because he does not project for a good season-long number. Unlike Alvin Kamara, I understand it. Alvin Kamara scored like so many fantasy points last year. I don't think he's a great bet to be scoring fantasy points in the playoffs, home drafts, or best ball. But I get that he scores a lot of fantasy points in general. Last year, Isaiah likely finished as the tight end 18 in points per game. That is as many points as Kyle Pitts. It is fewer points per game than Dalton Kincaid. He had as many 50-yard games as Dawson Knox, Foster Moreau, Luke Schoonmaker, and Grant Calcaterra. Backup tight ends. He had more
Calcaterra one hurt. That hurt to hear that one.
Does Stone Smart hurt? Because he was on the list too, but I started.
That hurts even worse. Yeah, Schoonmaker was beginning to hurt. Then it really, really hurt with whoever Calcaterra.
He scored under 5 points 6 times. Like those are just completely untenable as your starting fantasy tight end. Obviously, he had 2 crazy weeks. Week 1, and he had a double touchdown week. I think it was only on 2 catches or maybe 3, but it was a double touchdown week. But to me, like this is a player who is almost completely unplayable in redraft. And that's like what we're looking at these rankings for. In best ball, if you think he truly is the best backup tight end in the NFL, and then maybe he starts to usurp Mark Andrews, I sort of get the bet in best ball. I think I need to start drafting him more on these contract rumors, but I don't think he's like even remotely draftable in redraft.
Well, I likely is just so weird. So I view tight end 18 kind of as a floor. The 50-yard thing is very strange. That did bother me. Then he had back-to-back 50-yard games in the playoffs. So when the chips were actually down, they're giving him the ball. It kind of highlights me like, why were they not getting him the ball more to end the season? And then, so this time of year, sometimes you get really fixated. You almost have to get fixated sometimes on like 1 or 2 data points. The data point I got super fixated on with Isaiah Likely was John Harbaugh saying he expects an all-pro type year from Isaiah Likely. And he might not actually think that's truly within the range of outcomes, but these coaches are so guarded with their comments. You don't say the words all pro with regards to a player without some sort of message in mind or some sort of expectations in mind. Like he clearly wants something big from Isaiah Likely this year. I don't know if he's expecting something big. It's been a slow burn transition for a while. We're like, anytime they throw him the ball, something cool happens.
He's really
basically. Good. And I think they're ready to finally start throwing him the ball more. And I understand your point about like just trying to bank safe points there. But I almost view that like as, listen, it's the tight end 10 to 14 range. You're not going to get a cool player. I'd rather take a flyer on a cool player. And somewhere he's only 25. There's clearly plausible upside still. He's probably at the end of his development in a good way, where he's been like developing. Now it's time for the finished product. And he just strikes me as he's been close to making the leap for a while now. He does strike me as a real making the leap candidate. And I do want to have Isaiah Likely on my teams this year, despite how frustrating the experience has kind of been.
You can just wait till the person who drafts him cuts him. That's going to be my strategy.
That is a good point. That is a real good point. Although last year, he was one of the most added guys after week 1.
Yeah, and then he killed you every single week because he's a backup tight end.
He did. Well, let's be real. Mark Andrews is a backup tight end, but
no.
Isaiah Likely, I'm doing the cool player principle.
It's funny. A lot of your players that they weren't as much on this list, but other players I pushed back on were like, J-Mo and Isaiah Likely were like the best ball sickness had crept into your brain. And you had done that with some players.
No, I've always been a big play guy, and partly because of my totally insane home league that rewards distance scoring. I always like the big play dude. So we're going to be debating this stuff all summer. We're going to be working on our rankings all summer. You can find all that on Rotoworld.com. You can find all the latest news and updates on Rotoworld.com. You can find Kyle and I on Thursday, where we're going to be joined by a friend and colleague, Lawrence Jackson. We're going to ask him about some of the players he has to have this summer. So for Kyle, I'm Pat. Thanks for listening. Talk to you in 2 days' time.